I'm Dr. Rawari Waratini Karina, and this is Historical Intergenerational Trauma. In part 3 we looked at the Doctrine of Discovery. In part 4 we will be looking at the impacts of the Doctrine of Discovery, starting with the Taino people.
And so when Columbus shows up at the court of Isabella and Ferdinand and says, I think I can go west, and I think I can find lands to the west, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella sent Columbus forth under 7 documents that you can still read today. And I have the quote here, and I'm totally lost all my notes now, so I don't think I can find the quote. But they said they had sent him forth to seek and acquire new lands. And they promised him, and I can quote this, quote, "We will make you the admiral over any lands you acquire for us."
The Spaniards found pleasure in inventing all kinds of odd cruelties. The more cruel, the better with which to spill human blood. The Spaniards tested their strength and their blades, ripping chests open in one blow and exposing entrails. And there were those who did worse. My eyes have seen these acts so foreign to human nature, and now I tremble as I write.
Queen Isabella told Columbus to convert the natives to Christianity. Instead, the Spanish made them their slaves. The women were taken for pleasure. The men sent to the mountains to dig for gold. By 1503, the Taino world was turned upside down. In the gold mines, thousands of men were being worked to death, literally. To replace them, the Spaniards began raiding Taino villages. Las Casas witnessed it all.
The men were sent to mines as far as 80 leagues away, while their wives remained to work the soil. As for the newly born, they died early because their mothers, overworked and famished, had no milk to nurse them. Some mothers even drowned their babies from sheer desperation, while others caused themselves to abort.
In desperation, some Tainos took their own lives. Those who resisted the Spanish faced torture and death.
From 1494 to 1508, over 3 million people had perished from war, slavery, and the mines. Who in future generations will believe this?
So how did these European countries decide among themselves to divide up the world? Boy, that's pretty nice. Steve, you and I ought to define how to divide someone's house out here. So if you and I can just agree on it, then we can, take your property. Wow, what a unique thing. But this case has been enormously important. It's been cited dozens and dozens and dozens of times by the courts in Canada, by the courts in Australia, by the courts in New Zealand. It's even been cited 3 times by what's called the English Privy Council, which is the highest Supreme Court in the United Kingdom in England. Always cited about colonization and the power of the white, non-indigenous government to control the indigenous peoples.
Shameful part of Canada's history is worse than we thought. The commission tasked with finding the truth behind Canada's residential schools will release its final report next week. But as Jacques Bourbeau reports, the head of the commission is already speaking out, saying it's estimated at least 6,000 children died in these institutions, and it's inexcusable nobody has ever found out the exact number.
Justice Murray Sinclair has spent 6 years listening to the stories of residential school survivors. Today, he shared one of them with an audience at the University of Ottawa.
I developed a scab between my crotch. Somehow it got healed, but I carried that sexual abuse and assault for 49 years.
We have been taught from the time we were little that we have had no power. We've been taught from the time we were little that we aren't worth anything. And the reality is they've tried every kind of genocidal tactic on us, and we are still here.
It's about power. Mine over yours. Control. Me over you. Divide and conquer. I am the king. I wear the ring. It's global domination, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, my character, the governor, is not too far from reality. The words he spoke, more than just part of the presentation I did for you folks. He, Israel, his movement, Israel. Is there a governor sitting on top of Mount Mordor, rubbing his precious one ring to rule them all? Reality, no. Rationally, no. Metaphorically, yeah, I think so. I don't know more is limited by his influence. His web of deceit runs deep. His lies rule the lives of men who do not know. I don't know more about loosening his grip, stopping his greed-driven madness trick. So boom, boom, what the governor fears the most is unity between guest and host. A coming together of indigenous and non-indigenous societies undermines his divide and conquer policies. I don't know more isn't about revenge, retribution, eye for tooth. No. It's about love, unity, trust, and truth.
With a drum, a song, a prayer, exchange of time. This is the true reckoning, the human awakening. Together, brothers and sisters, I don't know more. Together, brothers and sisters, I don't know more.
When the Oneida Indian Nation was presenting its land rights or defending itself from a position taken by a small town in upstate New York called Sherrill. Sherrill said, Oneida's got to pay taxes here. And Oneida said, what do you mean pay taxes? You're sitting on our land. And the courts agreed with the Oneidas and finally got to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court reversed that and said, yeah, you're right. You're right, Cheryl. People have to pay taxes. Complete reversal. Supreme Court of the United States. Just a political decision, no doubt about it. So they're going to finish the work that started in 1493, which has extinguished title, extinguished people. And during that opening discussion, and if you get the court papers, and the first notation in the Supreme Court decision is, guess what? Doctrine of Discovery, 2007.
Starting in the 1340s, primarily being solidified in 1436, when Pope Eugenius II issued, I believe, the first papal bull about actual colonization and European power outside of Europe, granted the Canary Islands to Portugal to control and convert the wild men That's quote unquote the wild men of the Canary Islands. The Canary Island peoples were denigrated by the Spanish and the Portuguese. You can read the identical definitions of what were said about American Indians and the indigenous peoples around the rest of the world by Spain and Portugal. Why these Canary Island people have no law, they have no agriculture, they have no clothes, they have no money, they don't speak our language, they don't have laws. Well, the vast majority of those things were lies, weren't they? But those were the same kind of justifications that have always been described about American Indians and indigenous peoples elsewhere, to lower. Literally, folks, that's one of the elements of racism, of the definition of racism, is to somehow set yourself apart from the other, and then to lower in your valuation the way they live, or their law, or their ethics. And that's exactly what the Spanish and the Portuguese were doing.
Our people suffer from something. An elderly woman, a full-blood Dakota from where I'm from in Crow Creek. I was with her one time and a lot of bad things were going on. A lot of bad things. And I had asked her, why does this always happen to us? Why do we do these things to each other? Why does it always happen? And she didn't say nothing. She was driving a car for a while. I looked over at her, she was crying. And she said in her language, Ioki Shicha, a deep embedded genetic depression. See, our people at one time, the Dakota people, or all Native Americans, had a very strong connection with the Creator. A very strong connection with Mother Earth, a very strong connection with nature, the forces of nature, all living things on this planet. And all this was taken from us, like that. And we lost this connection with everything that we had. That's where this depression comes from. A lot of our people are severely depressed and they don't even know it. This depression is just now clinically diagnosed as the same thing soldiers suffer from when they return from combat.
The impact of the doctrine of discovery saw European countries like Great Britain, Spain, Portugal, Denmark gain wealth off the back of the slavery of indigenous peoples around the globe. What the series highlights is that the doctrine of discovery is still alive and well today.